I've been asked to explain what's happened today. What's happened today is exceptional, but this case was always exceptional. A request was made by the Indian government for the extradition of 3 men whom the government must have known, on the evidence it produced, were innocent of the charges. They must have known because the Indian government today withdrew the case, abandoned the case, on the basis that they had no evidence on which to charge. This is an extraordinarily serious matter, that a government, knowing the evidence it has, can go against 3 men in another country and hope to obtain their extradition to India. Now, there are more reasons than the lack of evidence. There are more reasons than the lack of evidence to drop the case today. This case is being tried not for the first time in this country. What the Indian government did not tell the court was there have been trials of this case of other men in India over many years, and they have all been acquitted. And the judgments in those cases, serious judgments by Indian judges, have said that the evidence, the same evidence that is produced here, was fabricated, that witnesses were coerced, that witnesses did not say what the prosecution said they said. How can it be that prosecutors are able to try and try and try again on the same discredited evidence? Now, in some ways, it's a disappointment that this case has finished in this court without the defence evidence being heard. The defence evidence would have been important to tell a convincing history of the behaviour of particular police towards the Sikh community, the repeated use of legislation of enormous reach, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. We in the defence were astonished when we began to understand the record of how people in India can be arrested and proceeded against year after year without ever having been brought to trial. This case, if it had been heard in full, would have had importance to understanding the process of law as it's brought against the Sikh community in India. Would have helped to understand how brave lawyers in India are combating these repressive laws. And it would have helped to understand how it is that a British man, Mr. Johal, has been detained year after year after year on evidence of the same kind, a wafer-thin case based upon a confession that's come from torture. But of extreme interest to us in investigating was that police officers in this case being used to support the prosecution had themselves been convicted of involvement in disappearances, torture and murder, had been convicted and yet had continued to serve as police officers. And one of those officers, we were astonished to note, was one of the officers identified by Mr. Johal as having been involved in his torture. All of this is relevant to what steps can and should be taken by this country in relation to the position of people like Mr. Johal, a British citizen in India at the time. We hope that what comes out of this case is a recognition that it isn't fitting to simply accept what a government says, but a duty to inquire far further. Now, we know that there are many MPs in this country who have expressed their concern, expressed their support for the defendants in this case. And we hope that what we've learned in this case can lead to real change and real recognition, and that the Foreign Secretary will now take up arms in the case of human rights of people who are detained there. So we've had a learning exercise, and it's our duty, I think, now to share it. Thank you.
Stop!